The steel platform groaned under the weight of 30,000 tons of industrial machinery as Marcus Chen's calloused hands gripped the safety railing. 200 miles off the Louisiana coast, the Titan's Pride oil rig cut through the morning. Fog like a metallic island, its derricks reaching toward the sky like mechanical prayers. Below, the Gulf of Mexico churned in endless gray waves, indifferent to the fortune being extracted from its depths. Marcus adjusted his yellow hard hat and checked his tool belt one more time. The familiar weight of wrenches and measuring devices, a comfort against the harsh reality of another 12-hour shift. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. At 42, Marcus carried himself with the quiet precision of a man who had learned that survival often depended on the smallest details. His weathered face bore the marks of both desert sun and ocean spray, lines etched deep around dark eyes that missed nothing. The orange safety vest stretched across broad shoulders that had once carried 60 pounds of tactical gear through hostile territory but now bore the simpler burden of honest labor. Beneath the industrial uniform, dog tags rested against his chest, a reminder of the man he used to be before life taught him that some battles were worth losing if it meant winning the war that mattered most. The morning briefing echoed across the platform as Supervisor Rodriguez outlined the day's maintenance schedule. Marcus listened with half an ear, his attention divided between the technical requirements and the mental countdown that had governed his life for the past 6 years. 11 hours and 37 minutes until he could catch the crew boat back to shore. 12 hours and 15 minutes until he walked through the doors of Bayou Elementary. 12 hours and 23 minutes until he saw Emma's gap-toothed smile as she ran toward him with another day's worth of stories and scraped knees and small victories that made everything else worthwhile. The other roughnecks respected Marcus for his competence and reliability, though few knew the full extent of his background. To them, he was simply the maintenance tech who never missed a shift, never complained about overtime, and could fix anything from hydraulic systems to communication arrays with equal skill. They saw a dedicated single father working to provide for his daughter, which was true enough. What they didn't see were the nightmares that sometimes jolted him awake at 3 in the morning, or the way his hand instinctively moved to his hip, where a sidearm used to rest when unexpected sounds echoed across the platform. Marcus began his rounds with the methodical approach that had kept him alive through 3 deployments in Afghanistan. First, the drill floor equipment, checking pressure gauges and lubricant levels with the same attention to detail he had once applied to explosive ordnance disposal. The irony wasn't lost on him that he now worked with controlled explosions of a different sort, the kind that brought wealth instead of destruction, though he understood better than most how quickly one could become the other. The Titan's Pride was a marvel of engineering, a floating city capable of drilling through miles of ocean floor to tap reservoirs that had been forming since before humans walked the earth. Each day, it processed crude oil worth millions of dollars, a black gold that powered economies and funded the comfortable lives of people who never thought about the men and women who risked everything to extract it. Marcus took pride in his small part of this operation, finding satisfaction in work that demanded both physical strength and technical expertise. As he moved through the maze of pipes and machinery, Marcus allowed his mind to drift to the evening routine that awaited him on shore. Emma would be finishing her homework at the kitchen table of their small apartment, probably struggling with the multiplication tables that seemed designed to frustrate 8-year-old minds. Mrs. Newen from next door would be keeping an eye on her, as she had faithfully done since Marcus started working offshore rotations. The elderly woman had become a surrogate grandmother to Emma, filling a role that Marcus's own parents might have played if they hadn't died in a car accident 2 years before Emma was born. The work was honest but demanding, requiring Marcus to be away from his daughter for weeks at a time. Each rotation meant 21 days on the rig, followed by 7 days on shore. A schedule that maximized earnings, but tested the bonds between father and child. During his shifts offshore, Marcus called Emma every evening at 6 o'clock sharp. Their conversations a lifeline that kept him anchored to the world beyond the industrial horizon. She would tell him about school and friends and the books she was reading, while he shared carefully edited versions of life on the rig, always emphasizing the teamwork and technical challenges while omitting the dangers that were as constant as the ocean breeze. The transformation from Delta Force operator to oil rig maintenance worker hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. After Sarah's death in that senseless accident, Marcus had faced a choice that millions of service members eventually confront. He could continue his military career, accepting assignments that would take him away from Emma for months at a time while she lived with relatives who barely knew her. Or he could find a way to be present in her life while still providing the financial security she deserved. The decision had been surprisingly easy once he held his 3-year-old daughter at Sarah's funeral, feeling her small body shake with sobs she didn't understand. Marcus had submitted his discharge papers within a week, trading the adrenaline and purpose of special operations for the steady paycheck and predictable schedule of civilian work. The transition had been brutal at first, as he struggled to find meaning in routine maintenance tasks after years of high stakes. Missions where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. But Emma had been his anchor, her needs and laughter gradually filling the void left by the brotherhood and sense of purpose he had sacrificed. The skills remained, though, buried beneath the surface like the oil deposits they extracted from the ocean floor. Marcus could still field strip an assault rifle blindfolded, still calculate blast radii and sniper angles without conscious thought. His body retained the muscle memory of close-quarters combat, even as his hands grew calloused from honest labor. Sometimes, during particularly challenging equipment repairs, he would catch glimpses of his former self in the way he approached problems with tactical precision and systematic thoroughness. By mid-morning, Marcus had completed his initial inspection rounds and was heading toward the drilling platform when he noticed the helicopter approaching from the northeast. Company helicopters were common enough, bringing supplies and personnel. Changes, but this one carried the distinctive blue and silver livery of Meridian Energy's executive fleet. Marcus paused in his work to watch the aircraft circle the platform before settling onto the helipad with practiced precision. The passenger who emerged was clearly someone important, judging by the way the platform supervisor hurried to greet her. Marcus caught only a glimpse from his position near the drill floor, but he could see she was a woman in her 30s, professionally dressed despite the industrial setting, moving with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style, and she wore safety gear that looked new and expensive, the kind reserved for visiting executives who needed to tour facilities without actually getting dirty. Marcus returned to his work, replacing a worn gasket in one of the secondary pumping systems. Executive visits were rare but not unheard of, usually timed to coincide with major milestones or equipment installations. He assumed this was another routine inspection, perhaps related to the new drilling equipment that had been installed the previous month. The woman's presence had already sparked conversations among the crew, speculation about potential changes in operations or personnel that might affect their jobs and schedules. The morning wore on with the steady rhythm that characterized life. On the rig, Marcus moved through his checklist with mechanical efficiency, testing pressure valves, calibrating sensors, and performing the hundreds of small maintenance tasks that kept the operation running smoothly. The work required constant vigilance, as even minor equipment failures could cascade into major problems when dealing with systems that operated under extreme pressure and temperature conditions. Around noon, as Marcus was completing a routine inspection of the blowout preventers, he heard his name called over the platform's public address system. The voice belonged to Rodriguez, requesting that he report to the main office for a special assignment. Marcus secured his tools and made his way across the platform, curious about what might require his specific expertise. Special assignments were unusual, typically reserved for emergency repairs or technical problems that exceeded the capabilities of the regular maintenance crew. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The main office occupied the administrative section of the platform, a climate-controlled environment that felt almost luxurious after hours spent in the salt air and industrial noise of the working deck. Rodriguez greeted him with an expression that mixed urgency with something approaching relief, as if Marcus's arrival had solved a problem that had been causing considerable stress. Standing beside Rodriguez was the woman Marcus had seen arrive. By helicopter and up close, she was even more impressive than his distant glimpse had suggested. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, with intelligent brown eyes that seemed to catalog everything around her with the same systematic approach. Marcus applied to equipment inspections. Her handshake was firm and direct, conveying confidence without arrogance, and when she spoke, her voice carried the clear authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected thousands of people. Dr. Victoria Hayes introduced herself as the Chief Technology Officer of Meridian Energy, and Marcus immediately understood why her visit had generated so much attention among the crew. Meridian was one of the largest energy companies in North America, with operations spanning from the Arctic Circle to the Gulf of Mexico. Dr. Hayes explained that she was conducting a comprehensive safety review of all offshore platforms following recent regulatory changes, and that his reputation for technical expertise had made him the obvious choice to assist with her inspection. The assignment seemed straightforward enough. Marcus would serve as her technical guide during a detailed examination of the platform's safety systems, providing insights into the practical operation of equipment that might not be apparent from engineering drawings or maintenance manuals. Dr. Hayes emphasized that she was particularly interested in potential failure points and redundancy systems, the kind of real-world knowledge that could only come from years of hands-on experience with the machinery. As they began their tour of the platform, Marcus found himself impressed by Dr. Hayes's technical knowledge and genuine interest in the operational details. Unlike many executives who visited offshore facilities, she asked intelligent questions and listened carefully to his explanations, occasionally making notes on a tablet that appeared to contain detailed schematics of the platform systems. Her questions revealed a deep understanding of petroleum engineering principles, though she admitted that her background was primarily in research and development rather than field operations. They spent the afternoon examining critical safety systems, from the blowout preventers that served as the last line of defense against uncontrolled releases to the fire suppression systems that could flood entire sections of the platform with foam or inert gas. Marcus explained the maintenance schedules and testing protocols for each system, while Dr. Hayes documented potential improvements and redundancies that might enhance overall safety margins. During their inspection of the gas detection systems, Dr. Hayes asked about Marcus's background, expressing curiosity about how someone with his obvious expertise had ended up working maintenance on an offshore platform. Marcus provided a carefully edited version of his story, mentioning military service and the desire to provide stability for his daughter. Without delving into the specific nature of his previous work, Dr. Hayes seemed to understand the unspoken elements of his explanation, nodding with the kind of recognition that suggested she had encountered other veterans who had made similar transitions. As the day progressed, Marcus found himself enjoying the technical discussions more than he had expected. Dr. Hayes's questions forced him to think about familiar systems in new ways, considering not just how they worked but how they might be improved or how they might fail under unusual circumstances. Her perspective as a researcher brought fresh insights to equipment he had maintained for years, and he discovered that explaining complex systems to someone with her level of understanding was both challenging and rewarding. The inspection continued into the early evening, with Dr. Hayes showing no signs of fatigue despite having been on the platform for nearly 8 hours. Her dedication impressed the crew members they encountered, who gradually warmed to her genuine interest in their work and her willingness to listen to their concerns and suggestions. Marcus noticed that she remembered names after a single introduction, and made a point of thanking each person for their time and expertise. As they concluded their examination of the platform's emergency response systems, Dr. Hayes asked Marcus about his family, mentioning that she had noticed the small photo of Emma that he kept clipped to his hard hat. The conversation that followed was surprisingly personal, with Dr. Hayes sharing her own struggles to balance career demands with personal relationships. She spoke with obvious admiration about Marcus's commitment to his daughter, noting that single parenthood while working in such a demanding field required sacrifices that few people fully understood. The helicopter that would return Dr. Hayes to shore wasn't scheduled to arrive until the following morning, meaning she would spend the night on the platform in one of the small guest quarters reserved for visiting personnel. Marcus offered to continue the technical discussions over dinner in the crew mess, an invitation that Dr. Hayes accepted with obvious pleasure. The evening meal provided an opportunity for more relaxed conversation as they discussed everything from advances in drilling technology to the challenges of maintaining work-life balance in demanding careers. As the night shift took over operations and the platform settled into its 24-hour rhythm, Marcus found himself walking Dr. Hayes to her quarters, their conversation continuing even as the day officially ended. She thanked him for his expertise and patience, noting that his insights had identified several areas where safety protocols could be enhanced. The genuine appreciation in her voice suggested that the day had been more than just another routine inspection, that his contributions had provided value beyond the simple completion of required procedures. Standing outside her quarters as the Gulf of Mexico stretched endlessly toward the horizon, Dr. Hayes made a comment that would stay with Marcus long after she departed. She mentioned that Meridian was always looking for experienced personnel who could bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application, people who understood both the technical requirements and the human factors that determined whether safety systems worked as designed. The remark was casual, almost offhand, but Marcus recognized it as the kind of observation that might lead to opportunities he hadn't previously considered. After bidding Dr. Hayes goodnight, Marcus made his way to his own small cabin, mentally reviewing the day's conversations and technical discussions. The work had been engaging in a way he hadn't experienced since leaving the military, challenging him to think beyond routine maintenance tasks and consider broader questions of system design and safety optimization. Dr. Hayes's questions had reminded him how much he enjoyed solving complex problems and sharing knowledge with others who appreciated technical expertise. As he prepared for sleep, Marcus's thoughts turned to Emma and the phone call he would make to her in a few hours. The conversation with Dr. Hayes about work-life balance had reinforced his commitment to being present in his daughter's life, even as it raised questions about whether his current path provided the best long-term opportunities for both of them. The platform work paid well and offered steady employment, but it also meant missing school plays and soccer games and the countless small moments that defined childhood. The night passed quietly, with Marcus sleeping better than he had in months, perhaps influenced by the day's intellectual stimulation and the sense of accomplishment that came from sharing his expertise with someone who truly valued it. He woke before dawn, as was his habit, and made his way to the communication center to place his daily call to Emma. Her sleepy voice filled him with the familiar mixture of love and longing that characterized their separation, as she shared the previous day's adventures and reminded him that she had only 12 more sleeps until he came home. The morning brought Dr. Hayes's departure, with the helicopter arriving precisely on schedule to return her to the mainland. She thanked Marcus again for his assistance, mentioning that she would be recommending improvements to several safety systems based on their discussions. Her parting handshake was accompanied by a business card and a suggestion that he consider how his skills might be applied in other contexts, leaving Marcus with the impression that their paths might cross, again under different circumstances. As the helicopter disappeared toward the Louisiana coast, Marcus returned to his regular duties, but found himself thinking about the previous day's conversations and the possibilities they had suggested. Dr. Hayes had shown him a different perspective on his work, helping him see that his maintenance duties were part of a larger system of safety and reliability that protected both workers and the environment. The realization was both satisfying and unsettling, as it raised questions about whether he was fully utilizing his capabilities in his current role. The remainder of his rotation passed with the familiar rhythm of offshore work, but Marcus found himself paying closer attention to the technical aspects of the systems he maintained. Dr. Hayes's questions had sharpened his awareness of potential improvements and safety enhancements, turning routine maintenance into opportunities for optimization and problem-solving. He began keeping more detailed notes about equipment performance and potential modifications, driven by a renewed sense of purpose that had been dormant since his military service. When his rotation ended 3 days later, Marcus carried Dr. Hayes's business card in his wallet as he boarded the crew boat for the journey back to shore. The card represented possibilities he wasn't ready to explore, but it also served as a reminder that his skills and experience had value beyond their current application. As the Louisiana coastline grew larger on the horizon, his thoughts shifted from professional possibilities to the reunion with Emma that awaited him, the 7 days of concentrated fatherhood that made every sacrifice worthwhile. Emma was waiting at the dock when the crew boat arrived, her small figure bouncing with excitement as she spotted her father among the disembarking workers. Her embrace was fierce and total, the kind of hug that erased the loneliness of 21 days at sea, and reminded Marcus why he had chosen this path. As they drove home through the familiar streets of their small coastal town, Emma filled the truck with chatter about school and friends and the dozens of small dramas that had unfolded during his absence. Their apartment felt simultaneously foreign and welcoming after weeks on the platform, too quiet without the constant hum of machinery, but warm with the personal touches that made it home. Emma had prepared welcome home drawings that covered the refrigerator, and Mrs. Nguyen had left a casserole with detailed reheating instructions. The simple domesticity of unpacking his sea bag and sorting through accumulated mail felt luxurious after the Spartan efficiency of offshore living. That evening, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed and listened to her prayers, he reflected on the conversation with Dr. Hayes and the questions it had raised about his future. His daughter's sleepy voice, asking about his adventures on the rig, reminded him that every career decision had to be weighed against its impact on her life and happiness. The business card in his wallet represented opportunities that might provide greater challenges and rewards, but it also represented change, and change always carried risks that had to be measured against the stability Emma needed. The days on shore passed with the accelerated pace that characterized shore leave, compressed time that had to accommodate weeks' worth of fatherhood into a single week. Marcus attended Emma's school play, helped with homework assignments, and took her on adventures that created memories to sustain them both through the next separation. Each moment was precious because it was finite, bounded by the calendar that governed offshore rotations and the economic realities that made them necessary. As his shore leave neared its end, Marcus found himself thinking more frequently about Dr. Hayes's parting comments and the business card that remained tucked in his wallet. The conversation had planted seeds of possibility that grew stronger each day, fed by Emma's questions about his work and her obvious pride in having a father who worked on a big boat in the ocean. Her 8-year-old perspective reminded him that there were many ways to serve and provide, and that his current path, while stable, might not represent the full extent of his potential contributions. The night before his return to the platform, Marcus sat on the small balcony of their apartment, watching the lights of passing ships on the distant horizon while Emma slept peacefully in her room. The business card lay on the table beside him, a tangible reminder of possibilities that existed beyond the familiar routine of offshore rotations. Dr. Hayes had seen something in him that transcended his current role, recognizing skills and experience that might have broader applications in the energy industry. For the first time since leaving the military, Marcus allowed himself to imagine a different future, one that might provide the intellectual challenges he had sacrificed for stability while still ensuring Emma's security and happiness. The thought was both exciting and terrifying, representing a departure from the carefully constructed life that had served them well for 6 years. But Dr. Hayes's visit had reminded him that sometimes the greatest risk lay not in pursuing change but in avoiding it, in settling for less than what was possible when greater opportunities presented themselves. As he prepared for another rotation on the Titan's Pride, Marcus made a decision that would alter the trajectory of both their lives. He would complete his upcoming tour of duty while carefully considering the possibilities that Dr. Hayes had suggested, researching opportunities that might allow him to remain present in Pavazenen, Emma's life, while fully utilizing the skills and experience he had gained through military service and offshore work. The business card would remain in his wallet as a reminder that their future held possibilities beyond the current routine, options that deserved careful consideration even if they ultimately proved impractical. The morning brought the familiar ritual of departure, with Emma clinging to him at the dock with the fierce desperation that never failed to tear at his heart. Her tears were brief but genuine, the natural response of a child who understood that love sometimes required separation but never became comfortable with its necessity. Marcus promised to call every evening and to bring her a special shell from the beach near the platform, small gestures that bridged the distance and reminded them both that some bonds transcended physical presence. As the crew boat carried him back toward the Titan's Pride, Marcus watched the Louisiana coastline recede with the mixture of anticipation and melancholy that characterized every departure. The platform loomed larger on the horizon, its familiar outline representing both duty and sacrifice, honest work and deferred dreams. But for the first time in years, Marcus saw it also as a stepping stone rather than a destination, a place where he could continue to serve while preparing for possibilities that might better serve both Emma's future and his own potential. Rotation ahead would be different, not in its daily routines but in the perspective Marcus brought to familiar tasks. Dr. Hayes's visit had awakened something that had been dormant since his discharge from the military, a sense that his skills and experience might have applications beyond their current use. As the crew boat approached the platform and Marcus prepared to begin another 21-day cycle, he carried with him not just the tools of his trade, but the growing conviction that their story was still being written, that the choices he made in the coming weeks might determine whether Emma would always remember him as the father who worked on an oil rig or as the man who transformed that work into something greater. The alarm's piercing wail cut through the morning air like a blade, sending every worker on the Titan's Pride into immediate action. Marcus dropped his wrench and sprinted toward the drill floor, his body moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who had responded to countless emergencies. The klaxon's distinctive pattern indicated a gas leak in Sector 7, one of the most critical areas of the platform where a single spark could transform millions of dollars of equipment into twisted metal and flames. Chaos erupted across the platform as workers followed emergency protocols drilled into them through countless safety meetings and practice runs. Marcus reached the incident command center just as Rodriguez was coordinating the response, his voice cutting through the noise with calm authority. The leak had been detected by automated sensors in the processing unit, but the exact location and severity remained unknown. What they did know was that hydrogen sulfide readings were climbing rapidly, turning a routine maintenance issue into a potentially deadly situation. Dr. Hayes emerged from the administrative offices, her earlier composure replaced by focused intensity as she absorbed the situation, reports flooding in from various sections of the platform. Her presence during an actual emergency was unprecedented, but she moved with the same systematic approach Marcus had observed during their safety inspection, asking precise questions and processing information with remarkable speed. The emergency had transformed her from a visiting executive into an active participant in the crisis response. The platform's emergency response team assembled in the control room, their faces grim as they reviewed readings from gas detection systems throughout the affected area. Marcus found himself included in the group, his technical expertise suddenly elevated from routine maintenance to critical decision-making. The leak appeared to be coming from somewhere within the gas processing manifold, a complex network of pipes and valves that handled some of the most dangerous substances extracted from the ocean floor. Rodriguez outlined the situation with military precision, his years of experience evident in the way he organized information and assigned responsibilities. The gas leak was serious but contained, assuming the wind patterns held steady and no ignition sources developed. However, the hydrogen sulfide concentration was approaching levels that would require evacuation of non-essential personnel, a decision that would effectively shut down production and cost the company millions of dollars. In lost revenue, Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension with quiet authority. She had been reviewing the technical specifications of the processing system and believed she had identified the most likely source of the leak, based on maintenance records and system pressures. Her analysis pointed to a specific section of piping that had shown stress indicators during recent inspections, an area that Marcus knew intimately from his daily rounds. The repair would require someone to enter the affected area wearing full breathing apparatus, locate the exact source of the leak, and either effect temporary repairs or install isolation valves to contain the problem. The work was dangerous, but not impossible, assuming the gas concentrations could be managed and proper safety protocols followed. Marcus volunteered immediately, his background in explosive ordnance disposal having prepared him for exactly this type of high-risk technical work. Rodriguez initially refused, citing safety regulations that prohibited unnecessary exposure to toxic gases. But Dr. Hayes supported Marcus's assessment that he was the most qualified person available to handle the repair. Her endorsement carried weight with the emergency response team, and after reviewing Marcus's safety certifications and technical qualifications, Rodriguez reluctantly agreed to let him attempt the repair under strict supervision and with full emergency backup. The preparation took nearly an hour as Marcus suited up in full chemical protection gear and tested communication systems that would keep him connected to the command center throughout the operation. Dr. Hayes reviewed the technical drawings with him one final time, identifying the most likely failure points and discussing contingency plans if the initial repair attempt proved unsuccessful. Her knowledge of the system's design provided insights that complemented Marcus's practical experience with its operation. Entering the affected area felt like stepping into another world, where the familiar sounds of the platform were muffled by protective equipment, and the constant hiss of escaping gas created an otherworldly atmosphere. Marcus moved methodically through the maze of pipes and equipment, following gas concentration readings and visual inspections to narrow down the source of the leak. The hydrogen sulfide detector on his belt provided constant feedback, its readings helping him avoid areas where gas concentrations posed immediate danger. The leak proved to be worse than initial estimates had suggested, originating from a corroded section of pipeline that had failed along a welded seam. The damage was extensive enough that temporary repairs would be insufficient, requiring the installation of a bypass system that would allow continued operation while permanent repairs were scheduled. Marcus assessed the situation and radioed his findings to the command center, where Dr. Hayes and Rodriguez weighed options for addressing the problem. Working in the toxic environment required precise movements and constant awareness of safety protocols, as any mistake could result in dangerous exposure or equipment damage that might escalate the emergency. Marcus drew on his military training to maintain focus despite the physical discomfort of working in full protective gear, treating the repair as he would have approached defusing an improvised explosive device in hostile territory. Each step was calculated, each movement deliberate, with no room for error or impatience. The bypass installation took 3 hours of painstaking work, with Marcus carefully routing new piping around the damaged section while maintaining system pressure and avoiding further gas releases. Dr. Hayes provided technical guidance from the command center, her understanding of system design, helping to optimize the repair approach and minimize downtime. Her voice in his earpiece became a constant source of support and information, guiding him through complex procedures with remarkable expertise. As the repair neared completion, a second alarm sounded, indicating that gas readings had spiked in an adjacent processing unit. The emergency was expanding beyond its original scope, threatening to overwhelm the platform's response capabilities and potentially forcing a complete evacuation. Marcus completed his work on the first leak and immediately moved to assess the new problem, his protective equipment allowing him to operate in areas that were now off-limits to other personnel. The second leak was smaller but located in a more critical area, where gas accumulation posed a direct threat to the platform's power generation systems. A failure there could result in the loss of essential systems, including emergency lighting, communication equipment, and safety systems that were critical for continued operations. Marcus realized that this wasn't just a maintenance emergency anymore, but a potential catastrophe that could endanger everyone on the platform. Dr. Hayes' voice crackled through his communication system with urgent information about system interdependencies that weren't immediately obvious from the platform's emergency procedures. Her research background allowed her to see connections between seemingly separate systems, identifying cascade effects that could transform isolated problems into platform-wide failures. Her insights proved invaluable as Marcus worked to address the expanding crisis. The platform's emergency response protocols called for evacuation when gas readings reached certain thresholds, but Dr. Hayes argued that abandoning the facility could actually increase the danger by leaving automated systems to handle problems they weren't designed to address. Her analysis suggested that continued human intervention, despite the risks, offered the best chance of preventing a catastrophic failure that could result in explosion, environmental damage, and potential loss of life. Rodriguez faced an impossible decision, weighing established safety protocols against expert advice that contradicted standard procedures. The company's liability exposure was enormous either way, but the potential consequences of evacuation during an escalating emergency could be even worse than the risks of continued operations. After consulting with shore-based management and reviewing Dr. Hayes' technical analysis, he made the difficult decision to maintain essential personnel on the platform while evacuating non-critical workers. Marcus continued his work in the toxic environment, now operating alone in sections of the platform that had been cleared of all other personnel. His protective equipment provided limited operating time, requiring careful management of air supplies and decontamination procedures. Between work sessions, each entry into the affected areas was planned with military precision, with specific objectives and strict time limits to minimize exposure risks. The work revealed a pattern of system failures that went beyond simple equipment aging or maintenance deficiencies. Dr. Hayes' analysis of the failure points suggested possible manufacturing defects or design flaws that had created vulnerabilities throughout the processing system. The implications were staggering, potentially affecting not just the Titan's pride, but similar platforms throughout the company's operations. The emergency was beginning to look less like an isolated incident and more like a symptom of systemic problems. As evening approached, Marcus had successfully contained the immediate leaks but identified several additional areas of concern that required monitoring and potential intervention. The platform remained operational, but at reduced capacity and with enhanced safety protocols that significantly increased operating costs. Dr. Hayes had documented everything, her notes forming the foundation for what would undoubtedly become a comprehensive investigation into the incident's root causes. The crew that remained on the platform worked with heightened awareness, understanding that they were operating in conditions that pushed safety margins to their limits. Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility that had characterized his military service, knowing that lives depended on his expertise and decision-making. The difference was that now Emma was part of that equation, her future security tied to his safe return from every dangerous situation he encountered. Dr. Hayes approached Marcus as he completed his decontamination procedures, her expression reflecting a mixture of admiration and concern that he found surprisingly moving. She had witnessed his work under pressure and seen capabilities that went far beyond routine maintenance tasks. Her observations during the emergency had revealed leadership qualities and technical expertise that belonged in corporate boardrooms rather than equipment rooms. The conversation that followed would prove to be a turning point in Marcus's life, though neither of them fully understood its significance at the time. Dr. Hayes spoke candidly about her observations during the emergency, noting that his performance under pressure demonstrated exactly the kind of practical expertise that Meridian Energy needed in its senior technical positions. Her company was facing similar systemic issues across multiple platforms, problems that required someone who could bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and real-world application. She offered Marcus a position as a senior safety consultant, a role that would involve traveling between company facilities to assess and upgrade safety systems based on the lessons learned from the day's emergency. The position would mean leaving the Titan's pride and the familiar routine of offshore rotations, but it would also provide opportunities for professional growth and significantly higher compensation. Most importantly, it would allow him to spend more time with Emma while still utilizing his technical expertise in meaningful ways. Marcus listened to the offer with growing amazement, hardly believing that a single day could transform his career prospects so dramatically. The position Dr. Hayes described would utilize every aspect of his background, from military experience to offshore expertise, while providing the kind of intellectual challenges he had been missing since leaving the service. The salary increase alone would ensure Emma's educational future and provide security he had never imagined possible as a maintenance worker. The decision wasn't simple, despite the obvious advantages of the opportunity. Marcus had built his life around stability and predictability, choosing security over advancement to ensure Emma's needs were always met. The new position would require travel and irregular schedules, potentially disrupting the careful balance he had maintained between work obligations and fatherhood responsibilities. Dr. Hayes seemed to understand his concerns, suggesting modifications to the role that would minimize travel requirements while maximizing his impact on company operations. As they discussed the practical aspects of the position, Marcus found himself drawn to Dr. Hayes's vision of systematic safety improvements that could prevent incidents like the day's emergency from occurring throughout the industry. Her approach combined rigorous technical analysis with practical implementation strategies, exactly the kind of work that had attracted him to military service years earlier. The opportunity to make a meaningful contribution to worker safety while advancing his own career was almost too good to believe. The emergency had also revealed something unexpected about Dr. Hayes herself, showing her to be far more than a corporate executive going through the motions of facility inspections. Her performance under pressure and technical expertise during the crisis had earned the respect of the entire platform crew, demonstrating leadership qualities that complemented her obvious intelligence and professional accomplishments. Marcus realized that working with her would provide opportunities for professional growth he had never considered possible. The platform gradually returned to normal operations as gas readings stabilized and emergency systems were reset to standard configurations. The incident would require extensive investigation and reporting, but the immediate crisis had passed without injury or environmental damage. Marcus's quick response and technical expertise had prevented what could have been catastrophic failure, earning recognition from both his immediate supervisors and corporate management. As the night shift took over operations, Marcus found himself walking the platform's perimeter with Dr. Hayes, their conversation continuing as they processed the day's events. The Gulf of Mexico stretched endlessly in all directions, its surface reflecting the platform's lights like scattered stars. The isolation that had once felt oppressive now seemed peaceful, a reminder of how removed they were from the normal concerns of onshore life. Dr. Hayes spoke about her own career path, sharing insights into the challenges of advancing through corporate hierarchies while maintaining technical credibility and personal integrity. Her experiences as a woman in a male-dominated industry had taught her to recognize and nurture talent wherever she found it, regardless of conventional career trajectories or traditional qualifications. She saw in Marcus the kind of practical expertise that could transform theoretical safety initiatives into real-world improvements. The conversation revealed depths to Dr. Hayes that weren't apparent in her professional interactions, showing her to be someone who understood the human costs of industrial operations and genuinely cared about worker safety beyond its impact on corporate liability. Her technical expertise was matched by emotional intelligence and leadership skills that had earned her rapid advancement despite the barriers that typically confronted women in the energy industry. Marcus shared more about his own background than he had with any colleague since leaving the military, finding in Dr. Hayes someone who could understand the challenges of transitioning from service to civilian careers. Her questions about his military experience were informed and respectful, showing genuine interest in how those skills might translate to corporate environments. The conversation felt more like a partnership discussion than a job interview, exploring possibilities rather than simply filling predetermined requirements. As they concluded their discussion, Dr. Hayes made it clear that the offer was serious and that she had the authority to implement it immediately. The position would begin with a comprehensive assessment of safety systems across Meridian's Gulf operations, work that would build on the day's experiences while providing broader exposure to industry practices and corporate decision-making. The role represented a chance to influence safety standards throughout one of the industry's largest companies. Marcus requested time to consider the offer, understanding that the decision would affect not just his own future but Emma's as well. The opportunity was extraordinary, but it also represented a departure from the careful stability he had built around their lives. Dr. Hayes agreed to give him a week to make his decision, providing time to discuss the changes with Emma and arrange the practical details that would make the transition possible. The following morning brought a return to routine operations, but Marcus approached his familiar tasks with new perspective. The emergency had demonstrated that his skills had applications far beyond routine maintenance, while Dr. Hayes's offer had shown that advancement was possible even for someone who had deliberately chosen stability over ambition. The combination of recognition and opportunity was intoxicating, stirring ambitions he had suppressed for years. News of Marcus's performance during the emergency spread quickly through the platform's informal communication networks, earning him respect and recognition from colleagues who had previously seen him as simply another maintenance worker. The crew's attitude toward him shifted noticeably, with senior personnel seeking his input on technical decisions and younger workers approaching him for advice and guidance. The change was subtle but significant, marking his emergence as a technical leader within the platform's hierarchy. Rodriguez pulled Marcus aside during the morning briefing, expressing both admiration for his emergency response and curiosity about his future plans. The supervisor had received calls from corporate management praising Marcus's performance and inquiring about his background and qualifications. Rodriguez suspected that opportunities were developing that would take Marcus away from the Titans' pride, though he hoped to retain such valuable expertise within his own operations. The conversation with Rodriguez reinforced Marcus's growing understanding that the emergency had been a defining moment in his career. His response had demonstrated capabilities that couldn't be hidden behind maintenance uniforms and routine assignments, revealing talents that demanded broader application. The recognition was gratifying but also somewhat intimidating, as it meant accepting responsibilities and expectations that would fundamentally change his professional identity. Dr. Hayes remained on the platform for 2 additional days, conducting follow-up investigations and documenting lessons learned from the emergency response. Her continued presence provided opportunities for ongoing discussions about the position she had offered, allowing Marcus to better understand both its requirements and its potential for impact. Each conversation strengthened his conviction. Emma's small fingers traced the edges of the business card that Marcus had placed on their kitchen table, her 8-year-old mind struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the decision her father was wrestling with. The card bore Dr. Victoria Hayes's name and title in elegant script, but to Emma, it represented something much simpler and more frightening: change. She had lived her entire conscious life within the predictable rhythm of her father's offshore rotations, and the possibility of disrupting that familiar pattern filled her with anxiety she couldn't quite articulate. Marcus watched his daughter's reaction carefully, knowing that her opinion would ultimately determine his response to Dr. Hayes's offer. The position represented everything he had thought he wanted: professional recognition, financial security, and the chance to utilize skills that had been dormant for years. But Emma's happiness had been the guiding principle of every major decision he had made since Sarah's death, and he wouldn't abandon that principle now, regardless of how attractive the opportunity might appear. The conversation that followed stretched across several evenings, with Marcus carefully explaining the nature of Dr. Hayes's offer while trying to help Emma understand how the changes might affect their lives. He described the new position in terms she could grasp, emphasizing that he would still be working to keep people safe, but in a different way, traveling to various locations to help prevent accidents like the one that had occurred on the Titans. Pride. Emma's questions revealed the depth of her understanding about their current situation and her concerns about potential changes. She worried about who would take care of her when he traveled, whether they would have to move away from their apartment and Mrs. Nguyen, and most importantly, whether accepting the new job meant he would be away from home even more than he already was. Her concerns were practical and heartfelt, reflecting the mature perspective that life with a single parent had forced her to develop. Marcus found himself explaining aspects of his military background that he had previously kept hidden, helping Emma understand why Dr. Hayes had recognized capabilities in him that went beyond routine maintenance work. He spoke carefully about his service, emphasizing the problem-solving and leadership aspects, while avoiding details that might frighten or confuse her. The conversation became an opportunity to share parts of his identity that had been compartmentalized since her birth. The discussion revealed how much Emma had absorbed about their financial situation, despite Marcus's efforts to shield her from economic concerns. She understood that the offshore work was necessary to pay for their apartment, her school, and the small luxuries that made their life comfortable. Her acceptance of these realities both impressed and saddened Marcus, reminding him that children often understood more than adults realized about the sacrifices made on their behalf. Mrs. Nguyen joined their conversation at Emma's request, offering the perspective of someone who had observed their family dynamics from the beginning. The elderly woman's insights proved invaluable, as she helped Emma understand that opportunities for advancement were rare and precious, not to be dismissed lightly. Her own immigration story provided context for the importance of seizing chances for improvement when they presented themselves. The decision-making process extended beyond their apartment, as Marcus sought advice from trusted colleagues and mentors. Rodriguez offered candid insights into the realities of corporate advancement, warning about the political complexities and travel demands that came with executive positions. His concerns were balanced by recognition that Marcus possessed exactly the combination of technical expertise and practical experience that companies needed in senior roles. Marcus also reached out to former military contacts who had successfully transitioned to civilian leadership positions, seeking their perspectives on the challenges and rewards of corporate advancement. Their experiences provided valuable context for understanding how his background might translate to the business world, while their warnings about corporate politics and work-life balance helped him anticipate potential difficulties. The conversations revealed a consistent theme. Opportunities like Dr. Hayes's offer were exceptional, requiring careful consideration but not necessarily warranting rejection out of fear of change. Several advisors emphasized that the position would provide financial security and professional satisfaction that might never be available again, particularly for someone without traditional corporate credentials or advanced degrees. Dr. Hayes maintained contact throughout Marcus's decision-making process, providing additional details about the position and addressing concerns as they arose. Her willingness to modify certain aspects of the role to accommodate his parental responsibilities demonstrated genuine commitment to securing his acceptance. She arranged for him to speak with other employees who had made similar transitions, providing realistic perspectives on the challenges and rewards of corporate advancement. These conversations revealed Dr. Hayes to be an exceptional manager who understood that employee retention required attention to personal circumstances and individual needs. Her approach to recruitment emphasized long-term mutual benefit rather than simply filling immediate organizational requirements. Marcus found himself increasingly impressed by her leadership style and vision for systemic safety improvements throughout the industry. The financial implications of the position were staggering from Marcus's perspective, representing a salary increase that would transform Emma's educational opportunities and their overall quality of life. The position included comprehensive health insurance, retirement benefits, and educational assistance that could fund Emma's college education, regardless of her chosen field of study. The economic security would eliminate the constant budget calculations that had governed their decisions for years. More importantly, the role would allow Marcus to establish a career trajectory that could provide increasing opportunities for advancement and professional satisfaction. Instead of aging out of physically demanding offshore work, he would be building expertise and relationships that could sustain him throughout his career. The long-term implications for both his and Emma's futures were profound. Emma's concerns about his travel schedule proved to be well-founded, as the position would require periods away from home that were unpredictable and potentially extended. Dr. Hayes worked with Marcus to develop arrangements that would minimize disruption to Emma's routine, including provisions for family travel when appropriate and flexibility for school events and emergencies. The accommodations demonstrated unusual corporate sensitivity to work-life balance issues. The solution they developed involved Mrs. Nguyen assuming a more formal role as Emma's caregiver during Marcus's business travel, with compensation and support that recognized the increased responsibilities. The arrangement would provide Mrs. Nguyen with additional income while ensuring Emma remained in familiar surroundings with someone she trusted. The plan addressed practical concerns while maintaining the stability that had been central to their lives. Marcus's final rotation On the Titan's pride took on special significance as he prepared to transition from hands-on technical work to management responsibilities. He approached familiar tasks with renewed appreciation, understanding that he was concluding a chapter of his life that had provided both security and satisfaction. The work had been honest and meaningful, even if it hadn't fully utilized his capabilities or provided optimal financial rewards. His colleagues on the platform responded to news of his promotion with mixed emotions, expressing genuine happiness for his advancement while lamenting the loss of someone they had come to respect and depend upon. The relationships formed through shared challenges and mutual reliance had created bonds that would endure beyond his departure from offshore work. Their support reinforced his confidence in the decision to accept Dr. Hayes' offer. The transition process included extensive briefings and training sessions designed to prepare Marcus for corporate responsibilities that differed significantly from his technical background. Dr. Hayes personally oversaw much of this preparation, ensuring that he understood both the explicit requirements of his new role and the Dr. Hayes implicit expectations that came with senior positions in large organizations. The training revealed aspects of corporate culture that were foreign to someone with Marcus's military and industrial background. The emphasis on consensus building, stakeholder management, and political sensitivity required adjustments in communication style and decision-making approaches. Dr. Hayes proved to be an excellent mentor, helping him navigate these complexities, while maintaining the directness and integrity that had characterized his previous work. Marcus's first assignment involved conducting safety assessments at 3 Gulf Coast facilities, work that would test his ability to apply lessons learned from the Titan's Pride emergency to different operational contexts. The assignment was carefully chosen to build his confidence while providing immediate value to the company. Dr. Hayes would accompany him on the initial visits, providing guidance and support as he adapted to his new responsibilities. The facilities he would assess represented different aspects of Meridian's operations, from offshore platforms similar to the Titan's Pride to onshore processing facilities that presented entirely different safety challenges. The diversity would require him to quickly master new technical systems, while applying consistent analytical approaches to identify vulnerabilities and improvement opportunities. The work promised to be both challenging and rewarding. Emma's adaptation to the new arrangements proved smoother than Marcus had anticipated, though not without moments of difficulty and adjustment. Mrs. Nguyen's increased presence in their lives provided stability and continuity that eased the transition, while Emma's natural resilience helped her cope with changes to their familiar routine. Her pride in her father's promotion was evident, even as she struggled with the practical implications of his new responsibilities. The financial improvements that accompanied Marcus's promotion were immediately apparent in their daily lives, from small luxuries like eating out occasionally to larger investments in Emma's education and extracurricular activities. The economic pressure that had influenced every decision for years was suddenly lifted, replaced by possibilities that had previously been unimaginable. The change was liberating, but also somewhat overwhelming for both of them. Marcus's relationship with Dr. Hayes evolved as they worked together on his initial assignments, developing from professional respect into genuine partnership. Her mentorship extended beyond technical guidance to include insights into corporate strategy and organizational dynamics that would be essential for his long-term success. Their working relationship was characterized by mutual respect and shared commitment to improving industry safety standards. The chemistry between them was undeniable, though both maintained strict professional boundaries that kept their interactions focused on work-related objectives. Dr. Hayes' intelligence and dedication impressed Marcus, while his practical expertise and integrity earned her increasing trust and reliance. Their collaboration proved more effective than either had anticipated, producing insights and recommendations that exceeded corporate expectations. Their first joint facility assessment was conducted at a processing plant in Texas, where they identified systemic vulnerabilities that had gone unnoticed by previous inspections. Marcus's ability to recognize practical problems that weren't apparent from engineering drawings complemented Dr. Hayes's theoretical knowledge and analytical skills. Their combined expertise produced recommendations that addressed both immediate safety concerns and long-term operational improvements. The success of their initial collaboration led to expanded responsibilities and increased visibility within Meridian's corporate hierarchy. Senior executives who had initially been skeptical of promoting someone without traditional corporate credentials began to recognize the value of Marcus's unique perspective and practical experience. His reputation for thorough analysis and actionable recommendations spread quickly through the organization. Dr. Hayes's support proved crucial during Marcus's early months in corporate environment, as she helped him navigate political complexities and organizational relationships that could have derailed his career advancement. Her guidance enabled him to avoid common pitfalls while building credibility with colleagues and superiors who controlled his future opportunities. The mentorship relationship became increasingly valuable as his responsibilities expanded. The work itself was deeply satisfying, combining technical analysis with strategic thinking in ways that fully utilized Marcus's capabilities for the first time since leaving military service. Each assessment revealed new challenges and opportunities for improvement, while the potential impact of his recommendations on worker safety provided the sense of purpose he had been missing in routine maintenance work. The professional fulfillment was everything Dr. Hayes had promised when she first offered the position. Emma's school performance improved markedly as financial pressures eased, and Marcus's increased availability allowed him to be more involved in her education. The stability that came with his corporate position enabled them to make long-term plans and investments in her development that had previously been impossible. Her confidence grew as she realized that their improved circumstances were permanent rather than temporary. The relationship between Marcus and Dr. Hayes deepened through shared professional challenges and mutual respect, though both remained committed to maintaining appropriate boundaries. Their collaboration was enhanced by growing personal trust and understanding as they learned to anticipate each other's perspectives and build on their complementary strengths. The partnership was becoming the foundation for broader initiatives within Meridian's safety program. Marcus's integration into corporate culture accelerated as his reputation for practical expertise and reliable judgment spread throughout the organization. Senior executives began seeking his input on strategic decisions that extended beyond safety issues, recognizing that his operational experience provided valuable perspective on practical implementation challenges. His influence within the company grew rapidly as colleagues learned to trust his analysis and recommendations. The financial security that came with his promotion enabled Marcus to establish college savings accounts for Emma and begin planning for long-term investments that would ensure their future stability. The economic transformation was remarkable, moving them from careful budget management to genuine financial planning for the first time in their lives. The change represented not just increased income, but fundamental improvement in their quality of life and future prospects. Dr. Hayes's mentorship extended beyond professional guidance to include personal support as Marcus adjusted to corporate responsibilities and their impact on his relationship with Emma. Her understanding of work-life balance challenges helped him develop strategies for maintaining his commitment to fatherhood while meeting the demands of his expanding role. Her advice proved invaluable as he learned to integrate professional success with personal priorities. The success of their initial collaboration led to assignment of increasingly complex and high-visibility projects, each building on lessons learned from previous assessments while addressing new challenges within Meridian's operations. Their partnership was producing results that exceeded corporate expectations and establishing new standards for safety analysis throughout the industry. The work was positioning both of them for continued advancement and expanded responsibilities. Marcus's transformation from maintenance worker to corporate executive was remarkable, not just for its speed, but for his ability to maintain the integrity and practical focus that had defined his character. The success hadn't changed his fundamental values or his commitment to Emma, but it had provided opportunities to express those values in ways that could benefit far more people than his previous work had reached. The evolution represented personal growth rather than fundamental change. Emma's adaptation to their new circumstances included growing pride in her father's accomplishments and increasing understanding of the importance of his work. Her questions about his projects demonstrated genuine interest in safety issues and appreciation for the lives that his efforts might save. The conversations helped strengthen their relationship while providing her with insights into career possibilities she might pursue in the future. The relationship between Marcus and Dr. Hayes continued to evolve as their professional partnership deepened and their personal respect grew into something approaching friendship. Both recognized the potential for their connection to develop beyond professional collaboration, though neither was prepared to risk the successful working relationship they had established. The tension between personal attraction and professional responsibility added complexity to their interactions. Marcus's success in his new role was attracting attention from throughout the energy industry, with competitors attempting to recruit him and trade publications featuring articles about his innovative approaches to safety analysis. The recognition was gratifying but also somewhat overwhelming for someone who had spent years working in relative anonymity. Dr. Hayes helped him manage the increased visibility while using it to advance Meridian's reputation for safety leadership. The financial and professional success was transforming not just Marcus's life, but Emma's future prospects, as opportunities that had previously been unimaginable became realistic possibilities. Her education could now include private schools, specialized programs, and eventually college choices based on quality rather than cost. The transformation represented generational change that would influence her entire life trajectory. As Marcus completed his first year in corporate leadership, he reflected on the journey that had brought him from offshore maintenance work to executive responsibilities. The transition had required adaptation and growth, but it had also validated Dr. Hayes' belief in his potential and proven that opportunity could transform lives when combined with dedication and support. His success was opening doors for both professional advancement and personal fulfillment that promised an even brighter future. The encrypted email arrived on Marcus's secure company laptop at 2:47 a.m. Its urgent classification coding automatically triggering security protocols that woke him with a soft chime from his bedside device. Years of military conditioning brought him instantly alert as he recognized the sender's credentials. Dr. Hayes was contacting him from Meridian's Crisis Management Center, something that had never happened during his 18 months as senior safety consultant. The message was brief but alarming. Anomalous pressure readings across multiple Gulf platforms, including potentially catastrophic indicators from the Titan's Pride. Marcus dressed quickly and quietly, careful not to wake Emma as he prepared for what appeared to be developing into a major emergency. The data attached to Dr. Hayes' message showed pressure spikes and temperature variations that defied normal operational parameters, suggesting either massive equipment failures or something far more sinister. His mind immediately began analyzing possibilities, drawing on both his offshore experience and military background to assess potential scenarios that could explain such widespread anomalies. The drive to Meridian's Houston headquarters took 43 minutes through pre-dawn traffic, giving Marcus time to review additional data that continued streaming to his secure device. The pattern emerging from the readings was deeply troubling, showing coordinated timing across multiple facilities that seemed too precise to be coincidental. Equipment failures were typically random and isolated, but these readings suggested Systematic problems that pointed toward either manufacturing defects or deliberate sabotage. Dr. Hayes met him at the building's security checkpoint, her normally composed demeanor replaced by focused urgency that reminded Marcus of pre-mission briefings in Afghanistan. She had been working through the night with Meridian's crisis response team, coordinating data collection and analysis while trying to determine the scope and nature of the emerging threat. Her exhaustion was evident, but her analytical mind remained sharp as she briefed Marcus on developments that had unfolded since her initial message. The crisis center buzzed with activity as technicians monitored real-time feeds from offshore platforms throughout the Gulf of Mexico. Wall-mounted displays showed facility locations, operational status, and alert conditions that painted a concerning picture of widespread system instabilities. Marcus recognized several platforms where he had conducted safety assessments, their familiar layouts now overlaid with warning indicators that suggested imminent danger to personnel and equipment. Senior executives arrived throughout the early morning hours as the magnitude of the crisis became apparent. Marcus found himself included in briefings typically reserved for corporate officers, his expertise in both safety systems and platform operations making him essential to understanding the developing situation. The recognition of his value within the organization was gratifying, but the circumstances that had elevated his status were deeply concerning. The initial analysis suggested that pressure regulation systems across multiple platforms were failing in ways that bypassed normal safety protocols and backup systems. The failures were creating conditions that could lead to uncontrolled releases of oil and gas, with potential consequences ranging from environmental disasters to explosive events that could destroy entire facilities and kill everyone aboard. The scope of the threat was unprecedented in the industry's history. Dr. Hayes presented her preliminary assessment to the assembled executives, outlining 3 possible explanations for the coordinated failures: a previously unknown manufacturing defect affecting critical components across multiple platforms, a cyber attack targeting control systems, or deliberate sabotage by someone with intimate knowledge of Meridian's operations. Each possibility carried different implications for response strategies and corporate liability, making accurate diagnosis essential to appropriate action. Marcus's analysis of the pressure data revealed patterns that his military experience helped him recognize as signatures of deliberate manipulation rather than random failures. The timing and sequence of events suggested coordination that was inconsistent with either manufacturing defects or cyber attacks, pointing instead toward sabotage by someone with detailed knowledge of platform operations and safety systems. His assessment aligned with Dr. Hayes's growing suspicions about internal threats. The revelation that they might be dealing with sabotage rather than technical failures transformed the crisis from an operational emergency into a security investigation with potential criminal implications. FBI cybercrime specialists were contacted to assist with analysis of control systems, while corporate security began reviewing personnel records and access logs for evidence of suspicious activities. The investigation would need to proceed quickly, as additional platforms continued showing signs of systematic compromise. Marcus's unique combination of technical expertise and security background made him valuable to both the operational response and the criminal investigation. His ability to identify vulnerabilities that might be exploited for sabotage complemented Dr. Hayes's understanding of corporate systems and personnel with access to critical infrastructure. Their partnership, already successful in safety assessment work, now extended to protecting Meridian's operations from internal threats. The pressure readings from the Titan's Pride were particularly concerning, showing patterns that Marcus recognized from his years working on the platform. Someone with intimate knowledge of its systems was manipulating controls in ways that would eventually overcome safety protocols and create conditions for catastrophic failure. The timing suggested that the saboteur intended to create maximum damage during shift changes, when personnel would be most vulnerable. Dr. Hayes, coordinated emergency response protocols while Marcus worked with security specialists to identify potential suspects within Meridian's organization. The sabotage required access to multiple platform control systems, detailed knowledge of safety protocols, and understanding of timing that would maximize damage. The profile pointed toward current or former employees with extensive offshore experience and possible grievances against the company. The investigation revealed disturbing patterns in recent personnel actions that had created potential motives for sabotage. A series of layoffs and early retirements had affected experienced platform workers, while cost-cutting measures had reduced safety budgets and maintenance schedules. Several former employees had expressed anger about their treatment, creating a pool of suspects with both motive and capability for the kind of sophisticated sabotage they were witnessing. Marcus's analysis of the sabotage methods revealed techniques that required military-grade knowledge of explosive devices and timing systems, narrowing the suspect pool to individuals with specialized backgrounds similar to his own. The realization that another veteran might be responsible for endangering his former colleagues added personal dimension to the investigation, as Marcus understood both the skills required and the emotional factors that might drive such desperate actions. The crisis escalated when automated systems on the Titan's Pride began showing signs of imminent failure that would trigger emergency shutdown procedures. If the shutdown occurred while the platform was in its current compromised state, the result could be an uncontrolled release that would create environmental damage and potentially explosion conditions. Marcus realized that someone would need to manually override the systems to prevent catastrophe, a mission that would require precisely the kind of expertise he possessed. Dr. Hayes initially opposed Marcus's proposal to return to the Titans Pride for emergency intervention, citing both the personal danger and the investigation's need for his analytical skills. However, the alternatives were limited, as few people possessed both the technical knowledge and security clearance necessary to handle the delicate work of disarming sophisticated sabotage while maintaining platform operations. The decision ultimately came down to choosing between certain disaster and calculated risk. The helicopter flight to the Titan's Pride took place under emergency conditions, with Marcus accompanied by a small team of explosive specialists and communication equipment that would keep him connected to the crisis center throughout the operation. Dr. Hayes coordinated support from Houston, while monitoring his progress and providing technical guidance based on real-time analysis of platform conditions. The mission felt remarkably similar to his military deployments, complete with life or death stakes and the knowledge that failure would have consequences far beyond personal survival. The platform showed visible signs of distress as they approached, with emergency lights flashing and reduced personnel visible on normally busy work areas. The crew had been placed on high alert without being informed of the specific nature of the threat, creating tension and uncertainty that could complicate the emergency response. Marcus would need to work quickly and quietly to neutralize the sabotage without triggering panic or additional safety hazards. The sabotage proved to be even more sophisticated than initial analysis had suggested, involving not just control system manipulation, but physical devices planted throughout critical areas of the platform. The explosive devices were designed to create cascade failures that would overwhelm safety systems and create conditions for maximum destruction. Disarming them required not just technical expertise, but understanding of the saboteur's psychology and planning methods. Marcus worked methodically through the platform's most vulnerable areas, identifying and neutralizing explosive devices while simultaneously repairing control system damage that threatened to trigger automatic responses. Each device required careful analysis to determine the safest disarmament approach, as the saboteur had incorporated anti-tampering measures designed to cause detonation if removal was attempted incorrectly. The work drew on every aspect of his explosive ordnance disposal training. The investigation continued in Houston as Marcus worked offshore, with Dr. Hayes coordinating analysis of personnel records and communication logs that might identify the saboteur. The pattern of evidence pointed toward someone with access to multiple facilities and detailed knowledge of Meridian's operations, but the specific identity remained elusive. Time was running short, as additional platforms continued showing signs of compromise that suggested the sabotage campaign was far from over. The breakthrough came when Marcus discovered a signature technique in one of the explosive devices that he recognized from military training manuals used by a specific special operations unit. The information, combined with personnel records showing recent terminations of employees with relevant backgrounds, allowed the investigation team to identify Thomas Bradley, a former Navy SEAL who had been laid off from Meridian's safety department 6 months earlier during cost-cutting initiatives. Bradley's personnel file revealed a decorated military career, followed by 5 years of exemplary service with Meridian, until budget cuts had eliminated his position, despite strong performance reviews. His exit interview had noted concerns about reduced safety spending and warnings about potential consequences of staffing reductions. The termination had been handled poorly by corporate human resources, creating grievances that apparently had festered into desires for revenge. The realization that Bradley was likely responsible for the sabotage provided crucial insights into his methods and potential targets, but it also raised the stakes considerably. His military background meant that he possessed exactly the skills necessary to carry out sophisticated attacks while evading detection. Worse, his insider knowledge of Meridian's operations would allow him to anticipate their response strategies and potentially counter their efforts to stop him. Dr. Hayes coordinated law enforcement efforts to locate and apprehend Bradley while Marcus continued his work aboard the Titan's Pride. The race against time had become literal, as additional explosive devices were discovered that appeared to be on timers set to detonate during the platform's evening shift change. The coordination suggested that Bradley intended to maximize casualties among the colleagues who had witnessed his dismissal. The psychological profile that emerged from Bradley's records painted a picture of someone whose identity had been closely tied to his military service and subsequent safety work. The loss of his position had apparently been interpreted as professional rejection that triggered deeper issues related to purpose and self-worth. His actions suggested not just desire for revenge, but desperate attempt to prove his value by demonstrating the consequences of ignoring his expertise. Marcus's military background allowed him to anticipate some of Bradley's tactics and planning approaches, but it also created uncomfortable parallels that reminded him how easily circumstances might have pushed him towards similar desperation. The difference had been Emma's presence in his life, and the opportunities that Dr. Hayes had provided for constructive use of his skills. Bradley apparently lacked such anchoring influences, leaving him vulnerable to the rage and purposelessness that could drive veterans toward destructive actions. The disarmament work required Marcus to think like Bradley, understanding not just the technical aspects of the devices but the emotional motivations that had guided their placement and timing. Each device told a story about its creator's mindset and intentions, providing insights that helped Marcus predict where additional threats might be located. The psychological dimension of the work was as challenging as the technical requirements. As evening approached, the tempo of the operation intensified with the discovery of additional platforms showing signs of sabotage and the realization that Bradley's campaign was more extensive than initially understood. Law enforcement agencies coordinated efforts to locate him while Marcus and specialized teams worked to neutralize immediate threats across multiple facilities. The scope of the crisis was straining both corporate and government resources. The final confrontation occurred when Bradley was located attempting to access another offshore platform, apparently intending to complete additional sabotage operations. Before his earlier work was fully discovered, his arrest revealed the full extent of his planning. including backup devices and contingency plans that could have resulted in environmental and human disasters far beyond what they had already prevented. The investigation would eventually reveal that his actions had endangered thousands of workers and threatened environmental damage that could have lasted decades. Marcus's successful completion of the disarmament operation aboard the Titans pride earned recognition throughout Meridian's organization and the broader energy industry. His combination of technical expertise, military training, and personal courage had prevented catastrophic consequences that could have destroyed the company and set dangerous precedents for industrial sabotage. The recognition was gratifying, but the personal cost had been significant, as the stress of the operation and its implications for Emma's safety had taken an emotional toll. Dr. Hayes' coordination of the crisis response demonstrated leadership capabilities that impressed senior executives and positioned her for additional advancement within Meridian's hierarchy. Her ability to manage complex technical and security challenges while maintaining operational continuity had proven her value as a strategic leader rather than simply a technical expert. The success strengthened their professional partnership while deepening their personal connection. The investigation into Bradley's motives and methods revealed systemic issues within Meridian's human resources practices and cost-cutting approaches that had created conditions for employee grievances to escalate into dangerous actions. Dr. Hayes was assigned to lead a comprehensive review of personnel policies and safety staffing levels, work that would draw heavily on Marcus's insights into the practical implications of corporate decisions on worker morale and security. The crisis had demonstrated the vulnerability of offshore operations to insider threats and the importance of maintaining experienced safety personnel who understood both technical systems and human factors that influenced security. Marcus's role within the organization was permanently elevated, with responsibilities that included not just safety assessment, but security evaluation and threat analysis. The evolution represented recognition of capabilities that extended far beyond his original maintenance background. Emma's reaction to news of her father's heroic actions was complex, combining pride in his accomplishments with fear about the dangers he had faced and might encounter in the future. The realization that his corporate position could involve life-threatening situations forced mature discussions about risk and responsibility that helped her understand the broader implications of his career choices. Her support remained unwavering, but it was now informed by realistic understanding of the potential costs of his professional success. The relationship between Marcus and Dr. Hayes continued evolving as they worked together on post-crisis analysis and implementation of improved security measures. Their shared experience during the emergency had created bonds of trust and mutual reliance that transcended normal professional relationships. Both recognized that their connection had deepened beyond colleague interaction, though neither was prepared to acknowledge the personal implications while still processing the crisis's professional aftermath. The success of their collaboration during the sabotage crisis led to expanded responsibilities and increased visibility within both Meridian and the broader energy industry. Marcus found himself consulted on security issues affecting other companies, while Dr. Hayes was invited to speak at industry conferences about crisis management and leadership under pressure. Their partnership was becoming the model for effective integration of technical expertise and strategic thinking. The financial rewards that accompanied Marcus's elevated status within Meridian were substantial, providing security for Emma's future that exceeded his most optimistic projections from his offshore maintenance days. The compensation reflected not just his current contributions, but the company's recognition of his long-term value as someone who could bridge operational expertise with strategic leadership. The transformation from hourly worker to executive was complete, but it had come with responsibilities and pressures that he was still learning to manage. The crisis had revealed aspects of corporate culture and industry practices that troubled Marcus, particularly the way cost-cutting measures had created conditions for the very disasters they were supposedly designed to prevent. His new responsibilities included advocating for safety investments and personnel, policies that would prevent future incidents, work that aligned with his values while requiring navigation of political complexities he was still mastering. Dr. Hayes's mentorship remained crucial as Marcus adapted to his expanded role and the expectations that came with senior leadership positions. Her guidance helped him understand how to influence corporate decision-making while maintaining the integrity and directness that had characterized his approach to technical work. The balance between effectiveness and authenticity was delicate, requiring constant attention to ensure that success didn't compromise the principles that had made him valuable in the first place. The congressional hearing room buzzed with subdued tension as Marcus adjusted his tie and reviewed his prepared testimony one final time. 6 months had passed since the Bradley sabotage crisis, and the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources had convened special hearings to examine offshore security vulnerabilities and corporate responsibility in preventing industrial terrorism. As Meridian's newly appointed Director of Strategic Safety and Security, Marcus would be testifying alongside Dr. Hayes about the lessons learned and systematic changes implemented following the near-catastrophic attacks. Emma sat in the public gallery behind him, her presence both comforting and nerve-wracking as she witnessed her father address the nation's lawmakers about events that had nearly cost him his life. At 9 years old, she possessed a mature understanding of the significance of this moment, having lived through the aftermath of the crisis and observed its impact on their transformed lives. Her school had given her permission to attend, recognizing the educational value of seeing democracy in action, while supporting her father during this crucial testimony. Senator Patricia Morrison called the hearing to order with the gravity befitting discussion of threats to critical infrastructure and worker safety. The committee had spent weeks reviewing classified briefings about Bradley's methods and the vulnerabilities he had exploited, but this public session would focus on broader policy implications and industry-wide reforms needed to prevent similar attacks. Marcus's testimony would provide the technical foundation for legislation that could reshape offshore safety standards throughout the energy sector. Dr. Hayes was called first, her composed demeanor and comprehensive knowledge immediately commanding the committee's attention. She outlined the systematic nature of Bradley's attack, emphasizing how insider threats posed unique challenges that traditional security measures weren't designed to address. Her recommendations focused on enhanced personnel screening, improved mental health support for transitioning veterans, and technological safeguards that could detect unauthorized system modifications before they became dangerous. The senators' questions revealed deep concern about the implications of Bradley's success in penetrating multiple platforms and placing explosive devices without detection. The possibility that other disgruntled employees might attempt similar attacks had created urgency around implementing comprehensive security reforms that balanced protection against threats with operational efficiency. Dr. Hayes's responses demonstrated mastery of both technical details and policy implications that impressed even skeptical committee members. When Marcus was called to testify, he approached the witness table with the same calm focus he had brought to defusing Bradley's explosive devices. His opening statement acknowledged the courage of platform workers who continued their essential work despite increased awareness of security vulnerabilities, while emphasizing that their safety depended on systematic improvements to hiring practices, employee support systems, and threat detection capabilities. The committee's questions probed Marcus's unique perspective as both a former military operator and current corporate executive who had personally confronted the consequences of insider threats. His responses combined technical expertise with human insight, explaining how economic pressures and inadequate support for transitioning veterans could create conditions for radicalization. The testimony resonated powerfully as Marcus spoke from personal experience about the challenges of finding purpose and identity after military service. Senator Robert Chen pressed Marcus about whether additional veterans in the energy industry might pose similar threats, a question that allowed him to distinguish between individual psychological factors and broader systemic issues. Marcus emphasized that the vast majority of veterans brought valuable skills and dedication to civilian careers, but that inadequate support during transition periods could leave some vulnerable to destructive impulses when faced with professional setbacks or personal crises. The hearing's most dramatic moment came when Senator Morrison asked Marcus to describe his experience aboard the Titan's Pride during the disarmament operation. His detailed account of working through explosive devices while coordinating with the crisis response team provided vivid illustration of the stakes involved in offshore security failures. The senators listened in absolute silence as Marcus explained how Bradley's psychological profile had helped him anticipate device placement and disarmament challenges. Emma watched with obvious pride as her father answered complex questions with clarity and authority that commanded respect from senators and spectators alike. The transformation from offshore maintenance worker to national security expert was complete, but Marcus's testimony emphasized how his working class background provided essential perspective on policies affecting ordinary Americans. His authenticity and expertise created credibility that purely academic experts might have lacked. The testimony concluded with Marcus's recommendations for comprehensive reforms that would address both immediate security concerns and longer-term issues related to veteran employment and support. His proposals included enhanced screening procedures, improved mental health resources, technological upgrades to monitoring systems, and most importantly, better integration of security considerations into corporate human resources practices. The recommendations would form the foundation for legislation that could transform industry practices. Following the hearing, Marcus and Dr. Hayes were approached by multiple senators and staff members seeking additional insights and clarification about technical aspects of their testimony. The interest reflected growing recognition that offshore security required specialized expertise that traditional homeland security approaches hadn't adequately addressed. Their recommendations would likely influence not just legislation, but regulatory guidance and industry best practices for years to come. The drive back to Houston provided opportunity for Marcus and Dr. Hayes to reflect on the hearing's significance and discuss next steps in implementing the reforms they had proposed. Their professional partnership had evolved considerably since the crisis, with both assuming expanded responsibilities that utilized their complementary skills while addressing challenges that neither could have handled alone. The collaboration had become a model for effective leadership during complex technical and organizational transitions. Emma's observations about the hearing demonstrated her growing understanding of her father's work and its broader implications for society. Her questions about terrorism, security, and government showed sophisticated thinking about issues that most children her age never encountered. The experience was providing her with unique insights into public service and civic responsibility that would influence her own future career choices and understanding of citizenship. The months following the congressional testimony brought recognition and opportunities that transformed both Marcus's and Dr. Hayes's professional trajectories. Marcus was invited to join advisory boards for multiple government agencies and industry organizations, while Dr. Hayes was promoted to Senior Vice President with responsibility for safety and security across all of Meridian's operations. Their expertise was increasingly sought throughout the energy sector and related industries. The legislation that emerged from the congressional hearings incorporated many of their recommendations, creating new requirements for insider threat monitoring, enhanced background investigations, and improved support systems for transitioning military personnel. The Offshore Security Enhancement Act became a model for addressing infrastructure vulnerabilities in other industries, with Marcus serving as a technical advisor during its implementation phase. Emma's school life was enriched by her father's elevated profile, as teachers and classmates showed increased interest in her perspectives on current events and national security issues. She handled the attention with maturity that reflected both her natural confidence and the discussions about responsibility and service that had become regular features of their dinner conversations. Her academic performance continued to excel, as financial security eliminated concerns about educational resources and opportunities. The relationship between Marcus and Dr. Hayes gradually evolved beyond professional partnership as they worked together on implementing security reforms and managing their expanded responsibilities within Meridian. Their mutual respect had deepened into genuine affection, though both remained cautious about pursuing personal connections that might complicate their professional effectiveness. The tension between personal feelings and professional obligations created complexity in their daily interactions. Marcus's success in his new role was attracting attention from throughout the energy industry and related sectors, with multiple companies attempting to recruit him for senior executive positions that offered even greater compensation and responsibilities. The recognition was flattering but also created decisions about whether to remain with Meridian or pursue opportunities that might provide broader impact but less stability for Emma. Dr. Hayes's counsel proved invaluable as he navigated these choices. The memorial service for Thomas Bradley was attended by hundreds of veterans and former colleagues who remembered his service and early civilian achievements rather than his final destructive acts. Marcus spoke at the service, emphasizing the importance of supporting transitioning veterans and addressing the personal and professional challenges that could lead to tragic outcomes. His remarks helped frame Bradley's story as a cautionary tale about the need for better support systems rather than simply individual moral failure. The service provided closure for many who had struggled to understand how someone they respected could have chosen such destructive actions. Marcus's perspective as someone who had faced similar transition challenges but found constructive outlets for his skills helped others process their grief and anger while recommitting to preventive approaches that might help future veterans avoid similar trajectories. The healing process was important for the entire offshore community. Emma's reaction to her father's speech at Bradley's memorial demonstrated her growing understanding of complex moral issues and the importance of compassion even for those who had made terrible choices. Her questions about forgiveness, justice, and prevention showed sophisticated thinking about human nature and social responsibility. The conversations deepened their relationship while providing opportunities for Marcus to share values and perspectives that would guide her own moral development. The first anniversary of the sabotage crisis was marked by a company-wide safety recognition ceremony that honored the workers and executives who had prevented catastrophic consequences. Marcus was presented with Meridian's highest civilian honor, while Dr. Hayes received industry recognition for her leadership during the emergency response. The ceremonies provided opportunity to reflect on lessons learned while renewing commitments to continuous improvement in safety and security practices. The recognition extended beyond corporate celebrations as Marcus was invited to speak at military transition programs and veteran service organizations about successful civilian career development. His story became an inspiration for other veterans seeking meaningful work that utilized their military skills while providing family stability and professional satisfaction. The speaking engagements became a regular part of his responsibilities, contributing to his growing influence on veteran employment practices. Dr. Hayes's promotion to the executive committee at Meridian reflected her proven leadership capabilities and the value of her strategic vision for integrating safety and security considerations into business operations. Her success was opening doors for other women in the energy industry, while demonstrating that technical expertise combined with management skills could overcome traditional barriers to advancement. Marcus's support and partnership had been crucial to her achievements. The financial transformation that had begun with Marcus's promotion to corporate leadership continued as his expanded responsibilities brought compensation that exceeded his most optimistic projections from his offshore maintenance days. The security allowed him to establish trust funds for Emma's education and future needs while contributing to veteran support organizations and causes related to offshore worker safety. The ability to give back provided satisfaction that complemented his professional achievements. Emma's 9th birthday party was held at their new home, a modest but comfortable house in a neighborhood with excellent schools and safe streets. The party included classmates, neighbors, and family friends, including Dr. Hayes, who had become an important figure in Emma's life through her close working relationship with Marcus. The celebration marked not just Emma's birthday, but the stability and happiness they had achieved through Marcus's career transformation. The party conversation between Marcus and Dr. Hayes revealed their growing comfort with personal topics and shared interests beyond work responsibilities. Their relationship had evolved naturally from professional respect to genuine friendship to something approaching romantic interest, though both remained cautious about pursuing personal connections that might complicate their effective professional partnership. The balance required careful navigation of emotions and expectations. Emma's observations about Dr. Hayes during the party showed her approval of the relationship that was developing between the adults in her life. Her comments about Dr. Hayes being smart, kind, and good for her father demonstrated emotional intelligence that impressed both adults while providing implicit permission for them to explore personal connections. Emma's happiness and security were still Marcus's primary concerns, but her support made future possibilities more realistic. The success of the security reforms implemented following the Bradley crisis was becoming apparent through improved detection of potential threats and enhanced support for employees experiencing personal or professional difficulties. Several potential insider threats had been identified and addressed through counseling and support services before they could escalate into dangerous situations. The preventive approach was proving more effective than purely reactive security measures. Marcus's role in developing and implementing these reforms was gaining recognition throughout the security and energy communities, leading to consulting opportunities with other industries facing similar challenges. His unique combination of operational experience, technical expertise, and leadership skills was increasingly valuable as organizations sought to address insider threats and infrastructure vulnerabilities. The work was expanding his influence beyond the energy sector. The relationship between Marcus and Emma continued to be the foundation of his decision-making as he navigated increased responsibilities and opportunities. Her needs and happiness remained his primary consideration in evaluating career choices and personal relationships. The stability they had achieved allowed for more open discussions about the future and the possibilities that success had created. For both of them, Dr. Hayes' influence on both Marcus and Emma was becoming increasingly significant as their professional partnership deepened into personal friendship and potential romantic relationship. Her mentorship of Marcus had been crucial to his professional success, while her growing relationship with Emma provided the child with positive female influence that had been missing since her mother's death. The integration of their lives was happening naturally but required careful attention to ensure Emma's emotional needs were met. The congressional testimony had marked a turning point in Marcus's public profile, establishing him as a recognized expert on infrastructure security and veteran employment issues. The recognition brought speaking opportunities, advisory positions, and consulting requests that expanded his influence beyond his corporate role. The platform allowed him to advocate for policies and practices that could benefit countless workers and veterans facing similar challenges. The success story that began with Dr. Hayes recognizing Marcus's potential during a routine safety inspection had evolved into a partnership that was transforming both their lives and creating positive impacts throughout their industry. Their collaboration demonstrated how effective leadership could emerge from unexpected sources when organizations were willing to recognize and develop talent regardless of traditional credentials or career paths. Emma's understanding of her father's work and its importance continued to grow as she observed its impact on their lives and the lives of others. Her pride in his achievements was evident, but she also understood the responsibilities and pressures that came with success. The conversations about service, leadership, and making positive differences in the world were shaping her own aspirations and understanding of how individuals could contribute to society. The future held possibilities that Marcus could never have imagined during his days as an offshore maintenance worker, but the values and priorities that had guided his decisions remained constant. Emma's happiness and security continued to be his primary motivation, while his commitment to using his skills and experience to protect others provided professional purpose that aligned with his personal values. The integration of these priorities had created a life that was both successful and meaningful. The memorial garden established at Meridian's headquarters in honor of Thomas, Bradley, and other veterans who had struggled with civilian transition provided a place for reflection and remembrance. Marcus had contributed to its design and often brought Emma there to discuss the importance of supporting those who served and the tragic consequences when support systems failed. The garden served as both tribute and reminder of responsibilities. To fellow veterans, Dr. Hayes' decision to accept Marcus's invitation to Emma's school play marked another step in the evolution of their relationship from professional partnership to personal connection. Her presence at the event demonstrated commitment to both Marcus and Emma while showing her integration into their family life. Emma's performance was excellent, but her obvious pleasure at having both important adults in her life attend was even more significant. The play's theme of courage and perseverance resonated with the adults who had lived through the crisis that had transformed their lives. Emma's role as a young hero who saved her community through determination and clever thinking seemed to parallel her father's real-life experiences, though she had chosen the part before understanding the parallels. The performance provided opportunity for reflection on how life experiences influenced personal growth and understanding. The evening after the play, Marcus and Dr. Hayes finally acknowledged the personal feelings that had been growing alongside their professional partnership. Their conversation took place on the front porch of Marcus's house while Emma slept inside, a setting that emphasized the domestic happiness that had become central to his life. The discussion was careful and thoughtful, recognizing both the potential for personal fulfillment and the need to protect the professional relationship that had been so beneficial for both of them. Their decision to pursue a personal relationship was made with full awareness of the complexities it might create, but also with confidence that their mutual respect and shared values would help them navigate any challenges. Emma's approval and happiness were crucial factors, as was their commitment to maintaining the professional effectiveness that had made them valuable to Meridian and the broader industry. The relationship would develop gradually, with careful attention to all stakeholders' needs and interests. The transformation of Marcus's life from struggling single father to respected corporate executive and emerging public figure had exceeded every aspiration he had harbored during his most optimistic moments as an offshore worker. The success was deeply satisfying, but the relationships and personal connections that had developed along the way were even more valuable. Emma's happiness and security remained the foundation of his satisfaction, while his growing relationship with Dr. Hayes promised additional fulfillment and companionship. The story of how a routine safety inspection had revealed hidden potential and created opportunities for transformation became a popular example of how effective leadership could emerge from unexpected sources. Marcus's willingness to seize opportunities while maintaining his core values and priorities had created a model for others facing career transitions and difficult choices between security and advancement. The example inspired others while demonstrating that success could be achieved without compromising personal integrity or family responsibilities. As Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him from offshore maintenance work to congressional testimony and corporate leadership, he recognized how each step had built upon previous experiences while opening new possibilities for service and contribution. The military skills that had once seemed irrelevant to civilian life had proved essential to preventing catastrophic attacks, while the technical expertise gained through offshore work had provided credibility and practical knowledge that purely academic experts might have lacked. Emma's future was now filled with possibilities that reflected both the financial security Marcus's success had provided and the values and expectations he had instilled through their relationship. Her academic performance, social development, and growing understanding of civic responsibility suggested that she would continue the family tradition of service while pursuing her own dreams and aspirations. The foundation Marcus had built would support whatever path she chose to follow. The enduring legacy of the Bradley crisis and its aftermath would be the systematic improvements in security, veteran support, and corporate responsibility that had emerged from tragedy and near disaster. Marcus's role in developing and implementing these improvements had created lasting, positive impact that would protect countless workers and prevent future attacks. The contribution provided professional satisfaction that complemented personal happiness while justifying the risks and sacrifices required to achieve success. 5 years later, Marcus stood at the altar of the small chapel overlooking Galveston Bay, watching as Dr. Victoria Hayes walked down the aisle in an elegant ivory dress that complemented her radiant smile. Emma, now 14 and serving as maid of honor, beamed with pride as she witnessed the culmination of a relationship that had grown from professional respect into deep love and partnership. The ceremony was intimate, attended by close friends, colleagues, and the offshore workers who had become like family during Marcus's journey from maintenance technician to industry leader. The wedding represented more than just the union of two successful professionals who had found love later in life. It symbolized the completion of a transformation that had begun with a chance encounter during a safety inspection and evolved through crisis, growth, and mutual support into something neither had expected when their paths first crossed. Victoria had become not just Marcus's wife but Emma's chosen mother figure, filling a void that had existed since Sarah's death while bringing her own unique strengths to their family dynamic. Emma's speech at the reception moved the assembled guests to tears as she spoke about watching her father and Victoria support each other through professional challenges while never losing sight of what truly mattered. Her words reflected wisdom beyond her years, shaped by experiences that had taught her about resilience, love, and the importance of choosing people who would stand beside you when life became difficult. The teenager had grown into a confident, articulate young woman who understood both privilege and responsibility. The newlyweds honeymooned in Alaska, where they visited remote drilling operations that Marcus was helping to secure against emerging threats. Even their vacation combined personal happiness with professional purpose, as they consulted on security protocols while exploring landscapes that reminded them both of the natural beauty that their work helped protect. The trip reinforced their shared commitment to environmental stewardship and worker safety that had become central to their professional identities. Upon their return, Marcus and Victoria announced the establishment of the Sarah Chen Memorial Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting military veterans transitioning to civilian careers in the energy sector. The foundation would provide job training, mental health resources, and placement services designed to prevent the kind of isolation and desperation that had driven Thomas Bradley to his tragic choices. Emma had suggested naming it after her mother, understanding that Sarah's memory deserved to be associated with hope rather than loss. The Foundation's first initiative was a comprehensive training program that combined technical education with counseling support and job placement assistance. Marcus drew on his own transition experience to design curricula that addressed both practical skills and emotional challenges that veterans faced when leaving military service. Victoria's corporate connections provided internship opportunities and employment pathways that had previously been unavailable to veterans without traditional qualifications. Emma's involvement in the Foundation surprised both adults with her sophistication and dedication. She had inherited her father's practical problem-solving abilities and her stepmother's analytical mind, but she also brought youthful perspective and energy that enhanced their efforts. Her school project, documenting veteran employment challenges, had evolved into serious research that informed the Foundation's program development and policy advocacy efforts. The success of Marcus's congressional testimony had led to his appointment to the National Infrastructure Security Council, where he advised government agencies on protecting critical energy facilities from both foreign and domestic threats. The position required regular travel to Washington and coordination with intelligence agencies, but Victoria's support and Emma's maturity made it possible to balance these responsibilities with family commitments. The work felt like a natural extension of his military service, protecting the homeland through different but equally important means. Victoria's promotion to Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Energy made her one of the youngest women ever to lead a major oil company. But her success was built on the foundation of operational expertise and crisis management skills that had been tested during the Bradley incident. Her leadership style emphasized safety, environmental responsibility, and employee welfare in ways that were transforming industry practices. Marcus's influence was evident in her approach, though her vision and execution were distinctly her own. The couple's professional partnership continued to thrive even as their personal relationship deepened, with both understanding that their individual success enhanced their collective impact. They had learned to support each other's ambitions while maintaining the respect and equality that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. Their marriage was seen throughout the industry as a model of how dual-career couples could achieve individual excellence while building something greater together. Emma's academic achievements had earned her early admission to MIT, where she planned to study environmental engineering with a focus on sustainable energy systems. Her career aspirations reflected the influence of both parents while charting her own path toward addressing climate challenges through technological innovation. The Foundation Scholarship Program would help other young people follow similar paths, creating a legacy that extended far beyond their immediate family. The 10th anniversary of the Titan's Pride incident was commemorated with an industry-wide conference on offshore security that Marcus and Victoria co-chaired. The event brought together government officials, corporate executives, and technical experts to assess progress in preventing insider threats and improving emergency response capabilities. The gathering demonstrated how a near catastrophe had been transformed into positive change that protected thousands of workers and billions of dollars in critical infrastructure. Marcus's keynote address focused on the human factors that influenced security effectiveness, emphasizing that technology alone could never replace the importance of treating employees with dignity and providing support during difficult transitions. His message resonated with attendees who had witnessed similar transformations in their own organizations, as improved employee relations had become recognized as essential to operational security. The approach had prevented numerous potential incidents while improving workplace culture throughout the industry. The conference also featured presentations from program graduates of the Sarah Kien Memorial Foundation, veterans who had successfully transitioned to energy sector careers through the support and training provided by Marcus and Victoria's initiative. Their stories provided powerful testimony to the effectiveness of comprehensive support programs, while honoring the memory of the woman whose death had once seemed like pure tragedy, but had ultimately inspired positive change. Victoria's speech to the conference delegates focused on the business case for investing in employee welfare and security measures, demonstrating how proactive approaches generated better financial returns than reactive responses to crises. Her analysis showed that companies implementing comprehensive support programs experienced lower turnover, fewer security incidents, and improved operational efficiency. The data supported arguments for expanded investment in human capital development and employee support services. Emma's presentation of her research on veteran employment outcomes provided a younger perspective on issues that had shaped her entire conscious life. Her analysis of foundation program effectiveness and recommendations for improvement impressed professional attendees while demonstrating the next generation's commitment to continuing the work their parents had begun. Her poise and expertise suggested a bright future in whatever field she ultimately chose to pursue. The evening gala concluded the conference with recognition awards for individuals and organizations that had contributed to offshore security improvements. Marcus received the Lifetime Achievement Award for his role in preventing the Bradley attacks and developing comprehensive security reforms, while Victoria was honored for her leadership in implementing systematic changes that had influenced the entire industry. Their joint recognition reflected the power of partnership in achieving meaningful change. As they returned home to Houston after the conference, Marcus and Victoria reflected on how far they had traveled from their first meeting during that routine safety inspection years earlier. Neither had anticipated that a chance encounter would lead to marriage, shared professional success, and the establishment of programs that were changing lives throughout their industry. The journey had required courage, hard work, and mutual support, but it had exceeded their most optimistic dreams. For personal fulfillment and professional impact, Emma's departure for college marked another transition for the family. As the teenager who had been central to Marcus's decision-making for so many years began her own independent journey, her confidence and preparation reflected the love and stability that both parents had provided, while her values and aspirations honored the memory of her mother and the example of her father and stepmother. The foundation they had built would support her through whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. The empty nest period allowed Marcus and Victoria to focus more intensively on their professional responsibilities and foundation work, but they also discovered new dimensions of their relationship as they adjusted to life. Without the daily presence of the child who had brought them together, their love had matured through shared challenges and mutual support, creating a partnership that was stronger for having been tested by crisis and sustained by common purpose. The legacy of their unlikely love story continued to inspire others throughout the energy industry and beyond, demonstrating how professional excellence and personal happiness could be achieved simultaneously when built on foundations of respect, shared values, and commitment to something greater than individual success. Their example encouraged other couples facing similar challenges while providing hope for those still searching for both career fulfillment and personal connection. Years of success had not diminished Marcus's appreciation for the simple moments that had sustained him through difficult times. From Emma's bedtime stories to quiet dinners with Victoria, to the satisfaction of work that protected others from danger. The transformation from struggling single father to respected industry leader had been remarkable, but the relationships and connections that had made it possible remained the most precious aspects of his transformed life. Victoria's influence on Marcus's development had been profound, but his impact on her growth had been equally significant, as his practical wisdom and emotional intelligence had helped her become a more effective leader, while remaining true to her values. Their partnership had created synergies that enhanced both individual capabilities, while generating results that neither could have achieved alone. The relationship had become a model for how personal and professional success could reinforce, rather than compete with each other. The final scene of their story unfolded on the deck of their beach house, where they watched the sunset over the Gulf of Mexico. while discussing plans for expanding the foundation's reach to other industries and geographic regions. Emma called from college to share news about her latest research project, her voice filled with excitement about discoveries that might contribute to sustainable energy development. The conversation reminded them that their work was part of a larger continuum of service and improvement that would continue long after their own careers ended. As darkness fell and the lights of offshore platforms became visible on the distant horizon, Marcus and Victoria understood that their love story was also a story about second chances, hidden potential, and the power of recognizing worth in unexpected places. Their journey from that first safety inspection to this moment of contentment and continued purpose had demonstrated that transformation was possible at any stage of life when approached with courage, integrity, and commitment to others' welfare. The oil platforms twinkling in the distance served as reminders of where their journey had begun and how far they had traveled together, while the Foundation's work ensured that other veterans and their families would have opportunities to write their own stories of transformation and success. The legacy would continue through the lives they had touched and the systems they had improved, creating ripples of positive change that would extend far beyond their own remarkable story. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.